12 o'clock, welcome in. It is the halftime show here on The Game. Tyler Head. I believe Terry Ford is here. I think I briefly saw him earlier, but I did fly solo yesterday, so we expect him to make his casually late entrance here in just a moment. Whenever he does, by the way, you can see it on The Game TV, sponsored by our friends at Shepherd's Glass. Just go to youtube.com, search The Game TV, and watch us all day long. So Terry should be joining me here in a moment. Plenty of things to get into. We'll get to some of his reaction from the weekend over what was a busy weekend, obviously, with tons of basketball and tons of baseball as well. Baseball hitting the ground running this week. They have 5 games over the course of the next 6 days, roughly. Going to be playing tonight against the Citadel, tomorrow afternoon against Davidson. That game is at 3 o'clock. And then this weekend series coming up against Longwood to wrap up at least the series against non-conference opponents. They'll still play midweek games. They got Georgia State coming up next Tuesday before jumping into conference play against Ole Miss coming up next Saturday, St. Patrick's Day weekend on the road out there in Oxford. And, going back to this weekend's game against Clemson, weekend's games against Clemson, plural, which they're still working on rescheduling that other game, the third one that was supposed to be at Founders Park for later on in the season. We knew it was going to provide us the opportunity to learn a lot about the South Carolina team, to be that litmus test is the phrase we like to use quite a bit in terms of where this team is at, what they can improve on, and what is good. There's certainly good things to take away from the weekend series as well. I think overall, despite the fact that he lost both those games, you feel pretty good about your pitching staff overall. And I brought this point up yesterday. Like, you had a guy like Eli Jones that went out there and, he gave up 9 hits, but mitigated the damage for the most part, only giving up 2 runs. And hats off to Garrett Gainey. Dude went out there dealing in the extra innings against Clemson on Saturday. It's just 1 hit that he gave up that ended up being that home run that ended up sealing the game for them. And, you go to Sunday as well, and your pitching did a decent job there. Certainly things to improve on, but overall, and South Carolina's got one of the best ERAs as a staff in the entire country. So you're still feeling good in that regard. Obviously, the hitting was something that, maybe surprised some people with being as cold as it was. Brought up the stat yesterday, 4 of 37 with runners on, which is something that South Carolina obviously needs to improve on, especially when we talk about the caliber of pitchers that you're going to be going up against on a week in, week out basis in the SEC. But again, that's what we knew that this series was going to be for this past weekend, to get a real gauge of where you're at and kind of figure out what areas, need to be improved upon. And again, you have a week and a half, and you have 6 games in that week to improve on things and get yourself ready for conference play against Ole Miss coming up next weekend. There's Terry Ford.
Hey, it only took me 10 minutes to untangle my earbuds.
It's okay.
You ever notice, like, you try to put them away and you roll them up and
so this is actually my backup headphones. I left my other ones back at the apartment, but I've gotten to the point where I don't even try and untangle those anymore because it's weaved itself into this spider web with knots, and I should be able to go all around this producer studio and still keep my headphones on because the cord's long enough, but those have gotten so bad I can't go over to the phone without them being yanked off my head.
It's like I just strangled myself. I just hung myself.
Much like I've given up.
Now, is your A game pair the ones that were given to you at
those are the ones that
live broadcast?
But when we went on our trip the other week to Daytona, I cleared out the back seat of my car, brought everything inside, and I just keep forgetting to put them back in the car. So I have this backup set. They were cheap, like $20 from Best Buy, so they get the job done.
Dude, I'm telling you what, I don't spend, when I was getting headphones, I stopped spending over $30. I refused. I refused. No way. I made that mistake when I was early in my radio career, Tyler, young Tyler. Let me tell you a story about radio in the old days. Marconi and I were doing a show. No, like Sennheisers were the bomb.
Oh, yeah.
And they sell these fancy ones, and people spend $100 and some bucks on Sennheisers. And I wanted to have a pair of Sennheisers, even though $120 for Sennheisers was my weekly pay back then.
Sure.
Still
You're
is.
going to be able to hear everything crisp and clear.
That's right. Perfect. And plus, you look cool with Sennheisers.
Totally.
So I got a pair. My whole week's pay. Ordered them, had them for like a month. Awesome, wonderful, perfect. Plug them in one night, just randomly. All of a sudden, left ear's not working.
Yeah.
What's up with that? So I'm messing with, I think maybe it's a plug. Maybe it's a plug. So I'm shaking the headphones because that's, that's what a professional sound tech would do. Let's just shake the headphones.
Sure.
So I'm working it. I can't get anything. So I walk back to the engineer. He'd been there 100 years. And went to high school with George Washington. And so he looks at me and goes, oh, well, the cord. The cord is like loose. The connection's loose inside the headphone. Now, most of those headphones just take apart the side, the cans.
Sure.
And you fix it. You solder it, put it together, whatever. I said, can you just pop that off, John, and maybe fix it for me? I'd appreciate it. And he's like, no, you can't take these off. Why? Well, they're expensive. They won't let you just open these. These are very well put together, and you just can't open them.
It's like an iPhone. You can't take the back off.
Exactly. So I'm like, so you're telling me I spent $120 on these bleeping headphones. I've had them for a month, and now you can't fix them. He goes, no. He goes, what'd I do with them? He goes, oh, yeah, you can hang them on your rearview mirror, and they'll look pretty. That's what he said to me. Hang them on your rearview mirror, and they'll look pretty.
How about I strangle you?
I said, how about I wrap the cord around your throat, John? You've been around. You've been around a long time. You've lived a good life. So no more fancy headphones for this guy.
No.
Nothing over $30. Now, you bring up the games over the weekend against Clemson for Gamecock baseball. And I understand Gamecock fans don't want to hear anything, but you lost to Clemson twice. You got swept by Clemson. That's unacceptable. I agree. I get it. I do. I understand. But here's the thing. Once you get past losing to Clemson and kind of look at the two games, your pitching held up really well against an explosive offense. You got guys all over the bases.
Yeah.
You just couldn't deliver them. You went, 4 for 37 with runners on base, right?
Correct.
I mean, the good news is you had 37 opportunities to hit with runners on base in 2 games, by the way.
Right.
That's pretty good. It means you're getting guys on the bags. You're just not knocking them in.
And South Carolina, as we've talked about them so much this season, good plate discipline as far as drawing walks. And, I mean, Clemson hit a bunch of batters. Poor Gavin Cassis on Saturday got beaned 3 times. So you were taking advantage of getting your free passes. Again, you just had trouble driving those guys in.
And, again, you don't want to continue to have that trouble all year, but what you take, the positive part is you had 37 opportunities with runners on base in 2 games. That's ridiculous. That's almost 19 base runners a game.
Yeah, roughly.
And if you're going to get 18 to 19 base runners on a game, the odds eventually should be in your favor of knocking in runs. Now, you can't stink at it, but that many opportunities, good things should happen.
Sure.
But again, I know no one wants to hear it because if you'd have lost to North Carolina, it'd be a little annoying maybe because, they're north from here. But losing to Clemson drives everybody crazy. It's just like losing to South Carolina drives the Clemson folks crazy.
Well, and I thought Coach Kingston in both of his, media availabilities post-game said the same thing. 1 pitch, 1 hit. We're talking about a different ball game. If you drive in 2 of those runners in each of those games, that's 1 RBI right there. Then you're talking about a different story winning those games 6-5 or whatever. And, we're feeling a whole lot better about the team at this point. And it's those thin margins, which again, when we knew that, again, this was going to be kind of the litmus test, get an idea where this team was. And when you go back to the drawing board, it's not drastic things that you have to change. It's small little things, which again, you now have a week and a half until conference play to hopefully shore some of those things up and get ready for the stretch run.
Yeah, you lost 2 one-run games to a top 10 team. You were right there. I mean, look, and I understand, like game 1, when you come back from a big deficit and tie a game in your final at bat, you're like this, what inning do we win?
That's right.
Because there's no way we don't battle back like that and not pull a W.
Right.
And I was surprised the South Carolina lost because I figured you come back like that, you're going to win the game. And they didn't. And a home run beat them. And just, it was that's a tough one. I get it.
It is, especially with how good Gainey was pitching. That was the only hit that he gave up.
I know.
1 home run, which again, if that happens in the 4th inning, it's not that big of a deal. He's out there dealing. But when it's do or die and you can't give up anything, unfortunately, that ends the game.
Exactly. And so all the other good stuff gets wiped out because, again, the end of the day is you lose to Clemson.
Sure.
And I do understand it. And look, Coach Kingston understands it. He knows. He gets it. You can sit there all day and say 1 hit here, 1 hit there, a ball that, somebody ranges to their left or right and picks it compared to it gets through for the knock.
Right.
the ball in the alley that the outfielder runs down and it doesn't land for extra bases. All that stuff is true, but at the end of the day, the fan base goes, I don't care, you lost to Clemson.
Sure.
But there was good there. And once, South Carolina, if you're a South Carolina fan, once you get past the fact it was a loss to Clemson and you try to get a little objective and a little clarity, you'll say, hey, you know what? Pitching held up pretty well against a fine lineup, an explosive lineup. And offensively, the team had a ton of people on base. That's ebbs and flows, a lot of it, knocking in base runners. You just don't want to go dry in those opportunities.
Right.
So I get it. I understand. You don't want to hear it. It's like lost to Clemson, Ford. Move on, man. Don't want to talk about it. But there was some good to come from those two games. I think if you're Mark Kingston, you sit in your office and go, look, we don't want to lose. But we were right there. We were right there with these guys. We can play. We can play with the top 10 team in the country.
And here's the thing: if both these teams are as good as we think they are, and again, both ranked in the top 20 going into this matchup this past weekend, there's a very realistic chance you could see that team again down the line. And
you will see South Carolina, or hear them at least tonight on our sister station, ESPN 1320 WISW. I believe 6:15 pre, 6:30 first pitch. Against Citadel, a very explosive offensive squad. Citadel's only lost 2 games all year.
Yeah,
they can mash.
They
can mash. So South Carolina will see what the pitching can do against Citadel. And the reason you're hearing it on our sister station, ESPN 1320 WISW, some dude named Lamont Paris has got the airwaves starting at 6 with Carolina calls.
You mean potential national coach of the year?
It feels like that's where we're trending. And we'll talk about this men's basketball team, because I wasn't here yesterday. It was a girlfriend's birthday weekend. Ready? Come on the air, Yap Sports. Suck up to the girlfriend on her birthday weekend.
We all got to pick our battles.
Yes, we do. There's certain hills you don't die on in relationships, Tyler.
That's right.
Their birthday weekend, you look at them and say, honey, I got to go talk sports.
It's like, no, well, you don't. This is the first ranked versus ranked matchup in Colonial Life Arena in 7 years. I don't care.
You don't get it. And she looks at me and she's like, are we going to Il Basilica for dinner?
Like, well, tip is early in the afternoon, and then the baseball team's playing later in the day. It's like, I don't care.
She's like, you have no problem. You can watch that in your new apartment. What do you mean? In the apartment you're going to get if you want to watch that game. After 21 years, again, there's certain hills you don't die on.
I'm learning. I'm learning.
You're doing a fine job so far. You're doing a fine job dodging those marriage grenades.
It's a balance.
Yes, it is. I will come back and talk about the men's basketball team and what happened on Saturday at Colonial Life Arena. A phenomenal basketball game. And we'll get into a little bit of it because, obviously you yipped about it a lot yesterday. We'll just throw a couple things out about it in the next segment. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Do not forget tonight again on our sister station, ESPN 1320 WISW, here in Columbia, 6:15 pregame, 6:30 first pitch. Also on 100.3, the game in Myrtle Beach, you can hear Carolina baseball versus Citadel. Flip it around. No, probably on their AM, because they're carrying Carolina calls too, just like us.
That's right.
So on their sister station, you'll hear baseball, and on 100.3, the game in Myrtle Beach, you'll hear Carolina calls with Lamont Paris as well. Have I confused you? You're welcome. We'll come back here, talk some men's basketball. Excellent Saturday at CLA. We'll get into it next halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game.
was contested, and it was never in doubt.
There's Derek Scott, Judge Manning on the call Saturday from CLA. Meechie Johnson. What was that? The parking lot?
Yeah. His place of comfort, usually with shooting threes. But
Meechie was over here by the State House and fired one. Just, wow.
I mean, so critical. They were tied at 74 at that point in time. That gave South Carolina the lead to eventually, win the game there in the final 40 seconds or so. Man, what a past couple of games for performances from Meechie Johnson. Rightfully yesterday earned both the SEC and National Player of the Week honors for his respect performances. And, man, big-time players step up in big-time situations, and he certainly did on Saturday.
He's such an interesting player. When he's on it, you just sit there and go, oh, my God. And when he's off, you go, oh, my God. I mean, he's like, remember, he's struggled for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden, these last couple of games, here he comes. And, I mean, 10 of 15 from the floor, hit a couple of threes, got to the line with 3 of 6 from the line. Also, look at the box score now, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, couple steals. The one thing about him this year, though, Tyler, a couple things I think that, first of all, the pass to Zach Davis.
Yeah.
To get the winning bucket was big. Previous game, obviously, in the W on the road. Then this game, he just kind of takes over and scores. He wouldn't have made that pass couple years ago. He just wouldn't have made that pass. And A&M had just scored to tie it.
Yep.
And he just came down the court calmly, and we talked about it when it happened. He put himself in a position to threaten the defense. He was waiting for the A&M big. If the A&M big comes at him, he's dishing to Davis, who's cutting. If the A&M big stays back, he's going to the rack.
Sure.
And last year, he just would have pulled up and shot a 30-footer. This year, just the decision-making, the floor game, even when he struggled this year, Tyler, Meechie has played well. His floor game has been good. His inconsistency shooting the rock has not affected the rest of his game at all. And as a tribute to him and the coaching from Lamont Paris and the staff.
Yeah, for sure. And I brought this stat up yesterday. These past 2 games against Florida and A&M, that's the first time he scored double-digit points in back-to-back games since the start of conference play against Mississippi State and Alabama. But even in a lot of these games where he's scoring in single digits, you look at some of his other numbers, rebounds, assists, he's finding ways to contribute in different ways. So even though he's not scoring at the clip that he wants to, again, he's dishing out the assists, he's grabbing rebounds, all that kind of stuff. While, a BJ Mack is out there scoring 18 points, or Talon Cooper is scoring 15 points, or whatever it may be. And again, that kind of goes back to what we talked about with this team, where they're just not all based on one player and his performance, because they're all tied up in Meechie Johnson, and how he performed on a night-out basis. They wouldn't have 20-some-odd wins this season. They'd have about half of that, because, again, he's kind of had a roller coaster through conference play, but, again, seems to be kind of hopefully catching heat at the right time as we get set for some very important games coming up.
Yeah, and, when you watch Meechie, he just plays with more control. He occasionally hoists one where you go, ooh, but not like last year. Well, there was a lot of questionable shot selection last year. And maybe part of it was the team wasn't as good. Let's just be fair. Sometimes you look around and you go, oh, you know what? Kind of on me to do something because I don't have a ton of confidence in most of these guys to do anything.
Sure.
This team's better. He's a year older as Meechie. He's had an extra year in Lamont Paris' system and coaching from Lamont and the staff. And he's just such a better all-around player this year. And, again, you saw he was good, Meechie, catching fire the last 2 games. But I'm more impressed in the nights he struggles offensively. He doesn't go into a shell. He doesn't go into a funk. He keeps guarding people on defense. And like you said, on offense, all of a sudden he's making some passes. He's getting some rebounds, getting in a passing lane for a steal. He's very engaged no matter if he's scoring 25 or 5.
Right.
And that's been a huge difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, he's seen as one of the leaders on this team. And, on those nights where he's not having, some of his best statistics, he's still in there, engaged in the huddle, hyping guys up. Like, again, he could go sit on the bench and pout to himself. And we wouldn't love that, but you'd be like, okay, well, not the first time we've seen something like that happen, but still very engaged, still very much a team guy. And I think that resonates with everyone.
So what we saw on Saturday, again, a lot of it was attributed to the 1-3-1 zone in the second half that Lamont threw out. I know Lamont hates it. I get it. He hates it. But that 1-3-1 for South Carolina, when you break it out and you put Zach Davis on the point of that thing, and then you've got, Murray Bowles sitting there kind of patrolling that middle. And then you might have Josh Gray at times behind, Murray Bowles. And then all of a sudden you got really something going on because you got long arm guys, you got some bigs, you got some athleticism. It's a very interesting 1-3-1. And obviously Florida had trouble with it. They used it earlier this year, and I think it discombobulated Georgia, if I remember. But it's been a thing. Whenever Lamont has popped it out, it's really bothered the other team. And here's Coach Paris talking about going to that 1-3-1 zone.
Yeah, it did. I thought at one point we started making some baskets with at least some regularity, but then we were struggling getting stops. They were doing a good job in the ball screens. They were scoring a variety of ways in the ball screen. Sometimes with the guy that had the ball, they were pretty effective from the mid-range even during that. So I just wanted to change the complexion of what they were doing. And instead of being so geared up to ball screens and handoffs, essentially the same type action, even more difficult sometimes to defend, and make them do something different, particularly when they had two bigs in that are, don't shoot the ball great. So now you only have three guys to keep an eye on while you're out in the zone. And so, obviously, we did a good job. We got some tremendous results with it, and it's the second time the old 1-3-1 has saved the day for the Gamecock.
I think it's again. He's right. I mean, you got two bigs in the game. They bring a lot to the table for Florida. Sure. It's just like they're not, top offensive options, right?
Right.
So you go to that 1-3-1, changes the look. Florida's now got to attack, and I say this all the time. Basketball players, and this is not just today, it's been for years. Zone defenses screw with you. You don't play against them. You don't go, and I've said this before. You don't go to your local gym, and you go fives, and a guy looks over at the other four. Hey, you guys want to go 1-3-1 zone? What do you say? No, nobody plays zone.
Right.
Very rarely does anybody throw a zone at you and pick up.
Sure.
And when it does, a lot of people get, what do we do?
Right.
And it's when you're not used to it, you have a very difficult time playing against it offensively.
And it's a good weapon to have in your back pocket when you need it. As you mentioned, I believe it was the Georgia game earlier this season where they broke that out and helped them there too. And it's one of those things, especially when you go up against a team like Florida that is so good at offensive rebounding, you kind of run the risk of kind of leaving too many, holes open within your defense that's going to allow them to grab a lot more rebounds. They only grabbed one in the second half of that game when that 1-3-1 zone was being played, which I think stands out to me. But when you look at the statistical numbers for Florida in the first half and the second half, they shot pretty similarly to what they did in the first half. It wasn't all that different, but when you look at the shot chart of them in the first half, second half, they were a lot more spaced out, having to take shots from a lot farther out from areas of the court that they hadn't done in the first half. And that's what Lamont Paris was talking about there, just making them do something a little bit different, which at the end of the day, and again, it allowed South Carolina's offense to go on the run that they had. They put together their best offensive half of the entire season, scoring 51 points, and it was enough to outpace Florida.
But there was something else they did that was really important. Now, because again, Florida scored 37 in the first half, 39 in the second half. You're right. Yep. It's just their shot selection was different. They were being pushed to where they weren't as comfortable.
Sure.
Something South Carolina did, though, that maybe you guys talked about yesterday, was the key to this W on the offensive end of the court. We'll get to that next. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We're just kind of hanging around, yapping sports up until 3 here on the game. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, halftime show here on The Game. Busy week on The Game, a lot of baseball. We got baseball tonight against Citadel, baseball tomorrow against Davidson, baseball on the weekend against Longwood. And you know what you can do in every one of those games?
Win a lot of money.
Possibly pocket some dough from Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. It's a Grand Slam giveaway. Every game, if there's no Grand Slam, we add 25 more to the pot. Right now, I believe, let's see, the pot is sitting. There was no home runs, no Grand Slams, obviously, over the weekend. Clemson, $275, I think it is now.
That sounds correct.
So $275. Just go to 1075thegame.com. Click on the little flippy thingy on the top there, the media reel, promo reel. When you see Palmetto Citizens Grand Slam giveaway, fill out the little form. It takes you, I'm telling you, 22 seconds. Fill it out, hit submit. You got to do it once a week to be qualified. And if a Gamecock does hit a Grand Slam, we'll draw a name. If you're in, you could win whatever the pot is.
They have come so close. We've had so many bases loaded situations this season so far.
I'm telling you, how funny would it be if this thing builds like the special teams contest?
I feel like we're getting there.
$275. It's not bad dough.
It's not.
$275.
And look, this team's capable of hitting multiple ones this season, so it's not just one winner like our special teams touchdown contest was. We could have multiple ones this year.
You know how many chubby smash burgers I could buy with $275?
Quite a bit.
Yep. Problem is, I'm not allowed to play. Or my family can't play. Or you can't play.
That's true.
Or your family can't play. Especially, I mean, your wife's in media, too, so you get the double
no, we don't.
black mark on you.
We can't play any of the fun stuff.
You can't do anything. Welcome to the media.
Yeah.
But the good news is the massive lucrative salary far outweighs the fact you can't play for these.
Yeah, the six-figure deal is definitely worth it.
Absolutely. All right. We were talking about the men's victory over Florida. And yes, Lamont Paris went 1-3-1, and that was the talk of everywhere, was that 1-3-1 zone in the second half.
Right.
And yes, did it screw with Florida? It did, to a point of, now Florida had to run their offense different. It took Florida out of their rhythm, out of their comfort zone. Because again, nobody knows what to do for the most part when you play against a zone.
Sure.
You just don't. But there's a bigger thing in this game. All right, so despite the fact that, again, South Carolina, Lamont Paris, by the way, great defensive adjustment. Again, a guy that doesn't want to play zone. Those are the kind of coaches I like, the guys that they understand flow of game.
Right.
And situations. And sometimes, if you want to win the game, you have to sometimes go and do something that you typically makes you want to throw up in your mouth.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, the important thing is the W, or like my kid says, the dub. So I sounded really hip saying that, by the way. So that's what you got. You got to do what you got to do. And yes, if you're a man-to-man coach and you hate zone, but guess what? Zone might help you win a game.
Sure.
So you go zone. If you go up against a team that's attacking the basket on you, that day you just defensively, they're cutting through you. But they don't have a lot of really good perimeter shooters. It might be smart to go zone that day. Yeah, you got to worry about boxing out and all that stuff and getting, rebounds. But maybe you need to go zone, even for a short period of time, just to take them out of their comfort level, right? Discombobulate them.
Right.
But you get these coaches, no, man, I don't do that. Zones are for sissies. I'm a man-to-man coach. Did you lose the game? Yeah, but we lost it like a man. A man lost it like a man. I'm 40. I'd rather win and go to my 1-3-1 zone like, a girly man than to stay man-to-man, because that's what I do, and lose the game.
Right.
Because I can't stop them on dribble drive. Or they're just tearing my man-to-man defense apart. That's stubborn. It's not very, to me, I just don't like that kind of coaching. I think you got to understand in-game scenarios and in-game situations, and you as a coach have to be ready, and your team has to be coached up to be ready if you decide you want to go those routes, right?
And I think it gives you the versatility to be able to, again, stand up to any kind of team, because, again, now that we know they're going to be in the NCAA tournament, you don't know who you're going to end up drawing. So having that in your back pocket to be able to use in case of emergency break glass, we got to do something to slow down this other team's offense. It's good to have.
And the other thing that happened, though, in this game and you guys might have talked about it, but to me, first thing I noticed was, okay, Florida shot 48% from the floor, South Carolina 47%. Florida 27 buckets, 27 field goals, South Carolina 25. Florida hit one more three. 10 threes to 9, hit a better percentage of threes, over 43%. South Carolina hit almost 38.
Right.
The difference and Florida out-rebounded South Carolina. Had more assists. More turnovers as well. There's one stat that sticks out. South Carolina, 23 of 31 from the line.
Mm-hmm.
Florida, 12 of 15 from the line. You got to the line 31 times and you made 23 of them. You won this basketball game by outscoring Florida by 11 at the free throw line because you were aggressive.
Also forcing 8 turnovers in the second half as well, which again, when you go back to making them uncomfortable and making them do things a little bit differently on offense, that led to those takeaways.
Exactly. So those are the two major things. The 1-3-1 defense and getting to the free throw line. And here's Lamont Paris talking about the offensive attack, cut 11 there, Tyler.
Yeah, we talked about attacking. Even we got a kick out 3. They got a lot of size in there, and I think it was Talon probed into the middle and seemingly got stuck, pivoted all the way around, and he found Jacoby for a wide open 3. So we had talked at halftime about that, and we did some in the first half. We actually did in the Texas A&M game some too. Made a concerted effort to attack more, and so I think it was just the general feel for what we wanted to get done was to try to be aggressive and attacking. And we forced some fouls. We ran a play that ended up with Colin in the middle of the floor with space, and he attacked into a spin move and drew a foul. Just small things like that the cumulative effect of those things is that late in the game, when you have late game free throws, you're going to be nervous, and you can pretend you're not going to be nervous, but if there was a heart monitor on you, you'd be nervous. But the difference in it being a 1-and-1 versus knowing you got 2 shots no matter what, and what that does to a person is hard to measure. So those little fouls that we drew in those situations allowed us to late in the game be in 2-shot situations versus 1-and-1, and those things are critical.
Yep, no doubt. You're more aggressive, you draw more fouls, you get into the bonus quicker. Florida's 87th in the country in defensive efficiency. Florida's not very interested in defense.
Sure.
They're a top 15 team offensively. But the defense, they go, whatever, optional. So attacking a team that really doesn't want to play defense, that's the way to go. And like Lamont said, getting in a double bonus quick means at the end of the game, when you're going to the line, and let's say you're up by 2 or you're up by 1 or it's a tie game, you got 2. You're not shooting 1-and-1. So the aggressiveness was a thing. And getting to the free throw line was one of the key reasons that South Carolina won this basketball game. Kind of a big one tomorrow night.
A little bit.
We'll talk more about that through the show against Tennessee. Basically, you win. Guess who's sitting in first place?
That would be you, or at least to share first place. There's a lot of ways that it gets split up, and if Alabama loses, then you're in a better position. Right. But win tomorrow, you're in a good spot.
Well, you win your next 2, guess what?
Yeah.
All you can do, right?
And, if you win your next 2, regardless if you have sole possession of the SEC or splitting it, you get a double bye in the SEC tournament, which is big. You
don't throw the ball up in anger till Friday.
That's right.
And that's what's important. And, again, if you would have sat before the season started and anyone would have looked at, besides our buddy Gamecock Larry, God love him, anybody else would have said, I think South Carolina is going to have a chance to win the SEC regular season at the end of the year. You'd be like, how many beers have you had?
Yeah, I think we all would have laughed. Yeah. Now, did we expect marginal improvements over last year? Sure, and I brought this up to Elijah yesterday. If you would have told me this team was going to be around the middle of the SEC, somewhere in that 7-8 spot, I'm like, hey, that's great. That's a sizable improvement from what you did a year ago, something to build off of. Year number 3, like, hey, maybe then you can talk about being in that top 5, but they just went from the basement to the penthouse real quick.
And the thing that gets you is, what they've done this year, it kind of, you see it. It's not like this is a mystery or it's a fluke or no. You watch how they play. They play at a very slow pace. That takes other teams out of what they want to do. 2, the players execute well. They're very well coached. No one's perfect in a long basketball season. You're always going to have your moments where you go,
Right.
But they don't get behind big early in games. I'm going to try to, Tyler, and come in here tomorrow with the numbers to back it up. I can't remember a game they got down huge and had to come back. They've been really good starting games. They don't get down by 14 or 16 or whatever. they know who they are and they play to who they are.
Right.
And then late in games, and again, there's been some games like the LSU game went sideways and the Georgia game couldn't make a free throw. But they have, for the most part, executed in the big moments all year long. All year long. It's been so much fun to watch. All right, we'll come back in. Firehouse sub text to the hour, 803-446-100. Also, we'll spin over to the women. That thing got a little close, but the Gamecocks hold on to get the W. Just a little bit, and beating Tennessee. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We're rolling up until 3 here on the game. Time for the Firehouse. Subtext the hour at 803-404-6100 here on the halftime show on the game. Alrighty, Tyler Head, what do you got, man?
Yeah, so continue our conversation from earlier about the 1-3-1 defense. Jonathan weighs in and says Zach Davis has the perfect size and athleticism to be the top of that 1-3-1 zone.
Yes, he does. That's a great text. And it's true. Long arms, athletic. That's the point guy on a 1-3-1. And when you got the right guy on the point of a 1-3-1, he can make life miserable for dudes on the perimeter. And just with him and with Colin Murray-Boyles, when they put those guys together, and then they put Josh Gray on the back end of it, it's a very interesting defense because, again, no one looks at Josh Gray as a great rim protector. I mean, no one thinks he's, Victor Wembanyama or anything.
Sure.
But Gray has size on the back end of the defense. And when you got, I'll call him CMB because it sounds hip. When you've got him in the lane, again, he's athletic and he's 6'7". And, he does protect the rim decent, and he does a nice job patrolling the painted area.
Right.
And then you have Zach Davis on the point of this thing, just making people's lives miserable with long arms and athleticism and quick feet. It's a thing. It really is and they don't break it out a lot.
Right.
But when Lamont breaks it out, you can see why it's been successful. You really can.
No, absolutely. And again, like I said, it's good to have in your back pocket because, again, you never know who you're going to match up with, especially once you get into the tournament and being able to break that out to hopefully slow down, somebody that's giving you an offensive onslaught. Again, I go back to the Georgia game where they were just killing you from the three-point line in the first part of that game, and you slowed them down in the second half, allowed you to obviously come back and get that win.
Yeah, I mean, you decide, okay, what's Georgia weak at? Okay, now we've got to make them run offense to their weakness and not let them run to their strength.
Right.
And it worked. I mean, Georgia I forgot how many trips in a row without scoring a bucket. I mean, it went totally cold. Then they ended up making, I think, against that zone, they were like 1 for 8 or 1 for 9 or something. It changed the game.
Sure.
And it helped change the game on Saturday. So it's just good coaching, man. I appreciate a coach who understands in the flow of a game how to coach in the flow of a game. I'm not saying it's a lost art, but with so much numbers and so many different analytics and all this stuff now, it's almost taken that instinctive way you coach,
right? And
it's kind of like ran it over because sometimes analytics and because numbers, like if someone says there's a 78% chance that this is going to happen, and you don't go with it, someone's going to say, well, why'd you go with the 22% chance when you had the 78% chance?
Right.
But yes, the 78% chance is the majority, but there's a reason there's 22%, right? Because occasionally the 78 doesn't work.
Sure.
The master class is the guy in the moment, in the flow of the game, goes to the 22%. Because he understands in that moment, that's where it is. It's not in the 78% like he would typically go. A lot of times, Lamont Paris doesn't want to go zone. But every now and then, you go, you know what? We don't play it enough or a lot, but we're going to use it right here because in this instance, this might be the right thing to do to see if we can change the flow of Florida's offense.
Absolutely.
So I do. There's, again, as much as I love analytics, and God knows I'm sitting here with Ken Palm in front of me right now, I still respect that instinctive, intuitive feel of the moment. Because, again, these games are played by humans, not on a spreadsheet.
Right. Well, and I'm sure analytics can go into it as well when you're talking about scenarios and stuff, saying, hey, here's where a 1-3-1 zone has been effective in the few times we've been able to break it out this year compared to maybe some other times where it wouldn't be quite as effective depending on the type of team that you're playing, the type of offense you're playing. And here's the thing coming up tomorrow night against Tennessee. They're going to be playing another fast-paced, high-scoring offense like Florida was. They came into CLA this past weekend, and do you potentially break it out in the second half of that game if things aren't going your way? Maybe. You hope you have a similar situation to your game in Knoxville at the end of January, where you just led from the jump and didn't really have to worry about Tennessee getting too far away from you.
It's interesting because again, Georgia was a bad 3-point shooting team. They were good at attacking, and then you go to that zone, they just start standing around and chucking threes. Florida hits about 34% of their threes, which is right around average.
Right.
I mean, and their guards, Walter Clayton went crazy. He's typically a guy that shoots in the mid 30%, like 35, 36%. Poland's a guy that can make threes. He's over 43%. So Florida has guys who can make them, but overall they're an okay 3-point shooting team. But the way that game was going, you're like, we're much better off going 1-3-1. Hopefully they'll start standing around. And they'll start, throwing threes up too, and their offense will go stagnant. And then, like you said, the turnovers also helped. Thank you for the text on the Firehouse Up text line 803-404-6100. The women, that game that got a little tight there.
It looked Tennessee's a team that played them tight when they went up to Knoxville a couple weeks ago. That game was tied at the end of the third quarter, and once again, they just didn't really go away on Sunday, but South Carolina did enough to kind of mitigate the gap, or to manage the gap, and to hold on for that victory to wrap up another undefeated regular season.
But you know what? That's good. You want to play as many tight games as you can because that gets you ready for the tournament.
That's right.
And, you blew a double-digit lead, and Tennessee cut it to, 3, I think, late. Mm-hmm. But then South Carolina got themselves together, got the margin back out a bit, and got their win. It's all good stuff for the tournament, Tyler. Good practice.
That's right.
It's good practice. Tennessee played them tough this year, both times. All right, we will get to football in the 1 o'clock hour. How did some Gamecocks do at the Combine? We'll talk about that next here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game as we talk football in the 1 o'clock hour. All right, we'll start NFL Combine, and we'll focus on the top two guys we've been focusing on at the Combine. And that would be Spencer Rattler, Xavier Legette. Now, I'll grab this one off my phone that I read earlier from Yahoo. Well, not Yahoo. Yahoo had Spencer Rattler as one of the guys whose stock went down. We'll get to that in a minute.
I haven't seen any other publication do that.
Now, I'm looking here at the Rams SB Nation, because they were talking about would Spencer Rattler be drafted by the Rams as the future groomed starting quarterback after Matthew Stafford, finally retires and goes off to the quarterback nursing home. All right, so here's Rattler's scouting report from Draft Network going in. Legitimate strengths, legitimate NFL arm talent, we know that. Smooth, efficient throwing motion, yep. Plus mobility, he moves. 3-level passer, yep. Concerns, consistency with decision-making. I thought 2 years ago I was on board with that.
Sure.
I think last year Spencer really cleaned that up. Pocket presence, yes, he does tend to bail quickly at times. But to be fair, when you're getting hit 50 times a game,
circumstances may have created that for
anybody
him.
would want to bail quick.
Sure.
And then anticipation throws. Stuff like throwing guys open, anticipating this or that, and kind of making that throw maybe ahead of a cut, or anticipating a certain type throw and making that throw in that situation.
Right.
Out of those three, again, I get the pocket presence, but really, I want to take anybody that scouted him and say, "That's that pocket presence. Good, dude. You go get in that. You go quarterback.
Go run for your life.
Yeah, go give it a shot." I get the anticipation throws. I understand it, but the decision making I don't agree with now. I think that was more of a thing 2 years ago than it was last year. Here's the thing, though, that dings them, and it's one of my things. It was a disappointing weekend at the NFL Scouting Combine for South Carolina quarterback Spencer Rattler, who ran a 4.95 40. Also, out of the quarterbacks, the physical drills, like, the shuttles and the verticals, Rattler didn't test well. Duh.
Sure.
Nobody expected him to go there and be Lamar Jackson.
Right.
And if you're drafted, if you went into this, if you are an NFL front office and you went to watch Spencer Rattler run the 40, you all need to be fired.
Sure.
This isn't about how fast Spencer Rattler runs. Okay, ready? We're going to do this again. Turn on the bleeping tape. Watch him escape. Is he the fastest guy in the world? No. Is he the quickest guy in the world? No. You know what he is? He's a dude that when people are chasing him, he finds a way to get away and attempt to make a play. He
is elusive.
Yes. And guess what? He had a lot of practice at it last year.
That's right.
So, again, turn on the tape. If you are judging Spencer Rattler, how fast he runs 40 yards straight ahead in his underwear and Crocs, you're in the wrong business. And I'm not just saying it because he's here. This is one of my things. This is one of my things.
And we know that the offense was not built for Spencer Rattler to be an RPO type of guy. He tucked and run when he needed to get himself out of trouble. And again, when the pocket was collapsing the way that it was quite a bit last season, he had to do that more times than he was probably comfortable with. But again, he goes out there and he makes plays with his feet when he needs to. Again, he's not somebody that's going to burn you for a 50-yard touchdown run like Lenore Sellers did, against Vanderbilt or whatever it was. Like, that's just not his game. He is, as you mentioned, that kind of sit back in the pocket, pass type of guy. And when he has the proper protection around him and you give him the time to sit back there and throw, as they mentioned, one of his strengths is that NFL arm, which we knew, having the opportunity to throw at the combine was going to benefit him. And I think it put on display how good his arm was, being able to throw at all those different levels. And that's what he's good at. And whatever team ends up drafting him is going to draft him for that reason, because that is the game that he plays.
And I have to double check because, again, top of my head doesn't work as good as it used to, but I do believe last year Rattler was really good against the blitz. If you go look at his Pro Football Focus numbers.
Right.
It's just, these are the kind of, and I don't care if it's Spencer Rattler, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, whatever. If you are sitting here looking at, especially like a Michael Penix or a Spencer Rattler, pocket passers, pro-style quarterbacks, no one brought in Spencer Rattler to Oklahoma or South Carolina and say, hey, dude, we're going to run a lot of RPOs. We're going to have you take off and run the football. You in?
Right.
No. So this whole thing, now if you said, and I only put so much on this, now Spencer Rattler went out there when he threw, and he missed like 10 passes where he threw the ball in the parking lot, threw it in the stands, took a scout out and hit him in the head, wiped out the dudes on the NFL Network set. If you want to talk about that, then that's okay. You want to have that conversation, or at least go, okay, let's talk about that if you want to. That's something, because there's no coverage, there's no pass rush, no blitzes, no designing anything defensively to fool a guy. You're just throwing to guys kind of like pitching and catching. If you're all over the place with that and someone wants to say, wow, that wasn't very good. Right. All right, fine, whatever. I still say this. Why don't you turn on the tape and watch them play real football? How about we turn on the tape and watch real football? It just, didn't we have this discussion last week?
We did. And we talked about, while some of the, again, individual workout elements may not blow you away, when you get them in there on the whiteboard and being able to break down defenses and kind of explain situations and what his decision-making process would be, I think that's where he's going to impress a lot of people.
I have not seen one thing, and I'll keep looking, that said he was bad in interviews or on the whiteboard. I haven't seen it yet. Have I seen every take or post? No, I've been looking. But I'm going to keep looking to see if I can find anything like that, because I would be that's where I would be surprised. Mm-hmm. If Rattler didn't do well in the interviews or on the whiteboard. That would surprise. By the way, we even said this. He wasn't going to wow anybody running the 40 or his vertical or his shuttle or 10-yard cone run while you tap your head and rub your stomach and all this other stuff. No, he wasn't going to be a workout hero.
Right.
He just wasn't going to be. I still think Rattler, and here's the thing I've been listening to last night, driving 75 hours, is, and this happens all the time, and I think it's just a lot of smoke, but everybody starts talking about how many quarterbacks will go in the first round. Now I'm hearing this, it'll be 6. Next week it'll be 16.
Sure.
Next week it'll be 32. Every team will take a quarterback. All of a sudden, Bo Nix and Michael Penix are going in the first round. Do I think that's going to happen? No. I just don't think either one's their first-round picks. I think they're second-round guys. I think that's fair to take both those guys in the second round. But let's say they do. Let's say teams decide they're going to go hog wild in this draft. Rattler then becomes a second-round pick. Mm-hmm. Because, again, that's going to float him up another round. I really believe, again, third-round pick, maybe late second round for Rattler would not surprise me. But if Nix and Penix go in the first round, I can totally see a team in the second round snagging Spencer Rattler, because teams overdraft quarterbacks.
And it's so hard to predict these things. I know we love to read mock drafts in the offseason and all that kind of stuff. What the percentage correct on those is less than like 5 or something ridiculous like that. Like, yeah, it's easy to predict the number 1 overall pick and probably a couple in the first round. But as you get into those second and third rounds, it's all based on team needs, and you never know where somebody's going to go.
They're the complete opposite of Joe Lunardi.
Yeah.
Joe Lunardi almost nails it. But to be fair, that's easier.
Yeah.
But, yeah, look, the mock draft is just, it's fun to talk about. They're fun to look at. They're fun to debate, knock back and forth, give you the info of what these draft people are getting from teams. But remember this, teams blow smoke all the time.
Right.
Again, this is lying season. That's just what it is. It's lying season. Everybody's throwing out fertilizer to maneuver themselves better. Some teams will start trashing a guy because they want him to fall down the draft board to who? Them.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. So you always got to take a lot of this with a grain of salt. But if I really believe 4 quarterbacks will go in the first round. J.J. McCarthy is going to go because the world is split on J.J. McCarthy. Either it's, hey, man, he's got arm talent. He didn't throw it a lot, but what he did throw, we liked what we saw. He's athletic. He was part of a huge winning program at Michigan. Blah, 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 blah. When he had to wing it around the TCU game, yeah, he had some bad throws. We had a lot of really good throws. Then there's people that say this. They won a national championship, and they really didn't ask him to do a whole lot, but every now and then.
Right.
He wasn't given as much responsibility as the rest of these quarterbacks. No one knows if you then ask him to be a true franchise quarterback in the NFL and have to do things to win games and you don't have the running game to protect you or a defense to protect you, no one knows if he can do it.
Right.
I see both camps. I can't spend a first-round pick on a guy with that much unknown.
Well, the Colts did it last year with Anthony Richardson. Now, he showed more on display because Florida's offense was more open to allowing him to throw the ball, run the ball, that kind of stuff. But still, we had more unknowns on Anthony Richardson going into last year. And for the little bit that he did play, he actually did a pretty good job this year.
He wasn't very accurate, which is not a surprise. But he did what he did, Tyler. He makes wow plays.
Sure.
And then he makes head-scratching plays. And then he's made 4 or 5 head-scratching plays. And the minute you think, why did I draft him, he makes a wow play.
Speaking of this, I saw this over the weekend, the Joe Milton throws, where he's throwing bombs, 40, 50 yards down the field. And like the NFL official account or something like that tweet like, hey, look at Joe Milton. And all the college football people are like, so it begins again, huh?
Yeah, oh, absolutely it does. And that's what makes me laugh about this. Joe Milton will go out there, again, in a man capris, barefoot, throw a bunch of 50, 60, 70-yard throws to a dude running down the field with no one covering him and there's no pass rush, and people go, wow.
Yeah.
Put on the tape.
Well,
he was one of the worst deep ball throwers in America last year.
But here's the thing. Whatever organization ends up picking him up, we can fix that.
Oh, that's what they all do.
We're going to bring him, but we're going to bring him into our system. We're going to develop him, and he's going to become great.
You know what it is? Because I remember a couple of games I watched with Tennessee last year. It was all about his footwork. His footwork's a mess.
Yeah.
I can hear a team do this. We'll fix his footwork. Yeah. We'll fix his footwork.
We'll have him dancing back there.
It'll be like Dancing with the Stars.
Right.
It's going to be unbelievable because that's what these teams do. And so J.J. McCarthy will go in the first round. I mean, it's a no-brainer the first 3 are going. And then there's that thought, because this is what teams do. And we had this conversation last week. Don't draft a quarterback in the first round because you need to. Draft that quarterback in the first round because you think the guy you just took can be a franchise quarterback to help you win games and go to the postseason. Don't just take a quarterback because you got to take a quarterback.
Sure.
That's when you, Christian Ponder, Jake Locker. And that's when you make mistakes.
And I think that is, in a way, kind of a benefit of where Spencer Rattler potentially ending up in the third, maybe the second round, where theoretically he's going to go into a position where he's not going to be asked to be the day one starter. Let's say he goes to the Rams and sits behind Matthew Stafford for another year or two. That's his chance to marinate and develop and get up to that point where he is ready whenever he needs to take over and be that starting quarterback at whatever organization he's with.
A team like the Rams is the perfect scenario because you go in, you sit down, you learn. The first round pick, we got to get him on the field.
Right.
We got to start that rookie clock. Rookie clock's ticking. We got to get him on the field. We got to get him on the field. When you're second, third, fourth round or whatever, there's no sense of urgency now.
Right.
So Rattler gets taken second, third round. He can sit, learn, watch Matthew Stafford, who's a pro, and he can pick up a lot of good habits. And Stafford's a guy that'll put his arm around him and teach him stuff. He's not going to be Aaron Rodgers or Joe Montana. Screw you, or Brett Favre. Get away from me. But I think Spencer Rattler ending up in a spot like the Rams or something like that would be perfect for him. And then it would give him the opportunity when it's his time to see if he could be a franchise quarterback, starting franchise quarterback in the NFL.
Right.
We'll get to Xavier Legette next. We didn't get to Legette. For the stuff about Rattler and the 40 time and the physical drills, Xavier Legette gets the exact opposite. We'll get into that next. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We're talking football in the 1 o'clock hour on the game.
quite different for the Tulane Green. Xavier Legette.
Yeah, that's more like it with him, too.
4.39.
There's Xavier Legette blazing a 4.39 at the Combine. Very interesting. Very interesting. Legette, his he had a 40-inch vertical, 4.39 in the 40. A guy that big, showing that well in those drills to show explosiveness, which, again, as a quarterback, when you're a pocket passer, a pro-style offense type of guy, running a fast 40, whatever. How quick can you drop 3, 5, 7 steps, scan the defense, make a quick decision, and accurately throw the football in a tight window? That's what I care about. Don't care about your 40 time. But a wide receiver, you want to see explosiveness. And, again, I'm not big on how – if a wide receiver can burn a sub 4.40, that's great, but can you get open? And when they throw it to you, can you catch it? How about turn on the film? Here we go, turn on the film. But Legette showed very well at the Combine. And what they saw on tape, they now get to see in real life at the Underwear Olympics. Yeah, this guy is really fast for his size. This dude can really jump. So in the silly season, Legette helped himself. And I still, before the Combine, I figured Legette would be I thought, high second round, low first round type pick. And nothing he did at the Combine would hurt him. So Xavier Legette had a nice Combine. And it's a very deep wide receiver draft. And I've heard the comps again of the DK Metcalfs. A lot of people talk about Deebo Samuel because, both Deebo and Legette played at South Carolina, obviously. I've heard some A.J. Brown. And all those guys went in the second round, by the way. And their careers have turned out pretty well. So even if Legette goes second round, it doesn't mean anything. Great spot will be late first round to Kansas City. Chiefs have a lot of receivers. When you throw it to them, they drop it. And then win the Super Bowl. Because in the postseason, the guys that dropped it, stopped dropping it. But the Chiefs need some quality wide receivers. Guys that can get open, and when you throw it to them, they actually catch it. That'd be a great landing spot. Man, could you see being a wide receiver and get drafted by the team that has Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback? How phenomenal would that be? So, Legette did help himself at the Combine with what he did. And it just reaffirms what you saw on tape. I say this all the time. There's track speed and there's football speed. Some guys have blaze on a track, and it doesn't then relate to football. It doesn't transition, doesn't translate. They're fast guys on the track, but you put them in pads, and their speed, they're still fast. They're just not as fast as they are on the track. I'll tell you, if I look, I know I'm going to be crazy here. Hang in there with me. If I'm drafting for football players, I care more about the guys who run fast in football gear. I always said this, and of course, they'd never do it. Why don't you have these guys run the 40 in full gear? Or why don't you do this drill? And you probably couldn't do this because, God forbid, somebody would get hurt. How about you put guys in full pads, right? And you have 11 guys behind them in full pads. And you hit your little starter pistol, and the guy you're timing takes off, and he's being chased by the 11 guys. Truly see how fast he can run, people chasing him. In pads. On a field. Nutty idea. But no one would ever do that. I'd rather simulate some of these drills in football gear than I would just, in track gear. Or gym shorts. Or whatever. That's just me. But Xavier Legette did himself well. He tested well to go with the tape that he has, which really should matter more than anything. And, that will bode well for Legette. He's going to have I don't know. If I'm Xavier Legette, I'm not running at my pro day. I gave you a sub 4.4. I'm good. And with Rattler, it's just a throwing. Keep throwing. Just keep throwing, man. That's what matters. Not your 40 time, not your vertical, none of that mess. What matters is how you throw it. I saw one post that Rattler threw the ball really well. And that's what matters. In fact, I'm going to do another Spencer Rattler throwing a combine search so I can see what else I can find. I want a wide variety of opinion on these guys. And so as I sit here and look around it, like I found, talking about with Matt Miller from ESPN. And let's see here. It comes down to Miller, talking about Spencer Rattler, crisp. One of the more interesting quarterbacks in the NFL draft is Spencer Rattler. South Carolina quarterback has all the tools, but never exploded on the college scene like many expect him to do. Still, Matt Miller explained he had a solid day at the NFL Combine. Spencer Rattler, everyone's favorite mid-round quarterback. I thought he was crisp. Really a good day for him. He didn't run the 40-yard dash well, as I thought he would, but throwing, you can see why he's been able to be a starter in college football for 4 years. You can see why at one point he was a Heisman Trophy candidate, and 2 years ago was being talked about as a potential first-round pick. There you go. So I've seen so far that Rattler threw the ball well, and that's really what matters, honestly. And, going back to the conversation, I really believe that third round, maybe scooching up into the second if there's, because teams overdraft quarterbacks. But that's the way this thing works with those two. Marcellus Dahl, we'll see. Day 3 guy would make sense. And Nick Gargiulo might get drafted or might be an undrafted free agent. Look, being an undrafted free agent isn't a bad thing. I know everybody wants to hear their name called in the draft. Everybody does. I get it. I understand it. But sometimes if you get to the 7th round, you're not drafted, it might be in your best interest not to get drafted. Then you get to pick and choose what team to go to that you have a better chance of making that squad. So once you get late in that 7th round, as much as you want your name to be talked by whoever does it in the 7th round, at that point, I think you're just picking drunks out of the stands.
They get the janitor.
Exactly. Hey, Zeke!
Which, by the way, at what point does the casual person stop watching?
Oh, now, see, I'll say this. You love your NASCAR?
Sure.
I love the draft.
Okay, you're watching the 7th
I'm the guy
round.
watching. I watched Brock Purdy get drafted.
Yeah.
I don't watch every pick because I have things to do.
Sure.
I watch the first round. I watch the second and third rounds. Then that third day, I've got it on in the background, and I'm doing stuff.
Sure.
I love the draft, man. I am a draft dork like nobody's business. I love the draft.
The ratings are not peak on the third day. I will say that much.
I might be the only guy watching in the 7th round.
You might be.
Terry Ford might be the only man.
They might call you up to go make a pick at some point.
They might just say, hey, Terry, you're the only guy watching. You want to make the pick from your house? Sure.
But regardless, you bring up a good point that, and look, the NFL rosters are littered with guys that run undrafted free agents. Being a first-round pick doesn't mean you're going to be a Hall of Famer, and being an undrafted free agent doesn't mean you're going to get cut in camp. It can go both ways.
There's a guy named Kurt Warner wasn't drafted.
That's right.
How'd that go?
He was bagging groceries.
Yep.
We all know the story.
And that's the thing. It's like, look, yes, the percentages of first-round picks being successful is bigger than percentages of undrafted rookie free agents being successful. Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
But the point we're trying to make is you're an undrafted rookie free agent. You land on the right team that either is thin at the position you play or has a system that fits your skill set.
Yeah.
You have a shot. You have a legit shot to stick and stay. And you know what? Rosters at the bottom end, you put an undrafted rookie free agent in there, he's making a heck of a lot less money than some veteran.
That's right.
So you have a shot, is what I'm saying. So, and Nick Gargiulo can play 3 positions on the interior of the offensive line. He could probably be a long snapper. I mean, so Nick Gargiulo, good in pass protection last year. So even if Gargiulo doesn't get drafted, he has a chance. He does. He has a legit shot. And last time I checked, he went to Yale, so he's kind of smart.
Yeah, pretty smart.
All right, we'll come back in here. Speaking of interior offensive linemen, one retired yesterday. And again, it was a very entertaining, snot-filled goodbye. And we'll get into that next. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, it's a halftime show. We're hanging here till 3 on a game.
And so this all brings us here to today, where I announce that I am retiring. Where I announce I am retiring from the NFL after 13 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles.
There he is, Jason Kelce, for about 40 minutes, I think it was, the retirement speech. It was cool. I listened to probably half of it because, again, my girlfriend's from Philly. She's an Eagles fan.
Yeah.
She was all over the Jason Kelce retirement speech.
I'll say this. I respect somebody that gives their retirement speech in a shirt with no sleeves because a lot of they'll come in with a suit on and all. It's like he was 100% himself. He's like,
look, he just came back from like the bowling alley or the backyard or
like,
whatever.
It legitimately looks like he just came off the field and was doing his media availability, and like I love that.
I'm a Jason Kelce fan. I mean, the speech was the Super Bowl speech in itself.
Oh, the Grand Poobah or whatever you dressed up as.
He's got all the stuff on. He was hilarious. But he's just a genuine dude, and that's what I respect. He's just him. Travis, I think, is contrived in a lot of ways. He's always looking, okay, how can I build my followers, my brand?
Travis is a little fancy.
Travis has just got, he's always, it's like, it's not, he comes off sometimes very artificial, trying to, like everything's got another, like it's got a, what's your other reason for doing that?
Sure.
What's your real reason?
Sure.
Jason Kelce's the opposite. His brother, Jason, is just, that's him, man. He is who he is. That's who he is. Whether he's drunk with no shirt on at the Chiefs game, was waving behind Taylor Swift, or he's doing the speech after Philly wins a Super Bowl,
right?
Or what you saw yesterday when sometimes you couldn't understand because the snot bubbles were popping. Jason Kelce is just himself.
Right.
And he was very genuine and just honest in that speech yesterday, which I thought was very cool. You know, like the example he said, he goes, look, a few years ago, I sucked. I was awful. I think it was 2016. He goes, I was terrible. And I remember when he was struggling. Because I remember there's talks in the NFL circles, what are the Eagles going to do about Jason Kelce because he's getting manhandled at the line of scrimmage by bigger, like nose tackles and interior defensive linemen.
Right.
What are you going to do? And offensive line coach, and he gave him love. He said he believed him. He said we can fix it with hard work and technique and blah, 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 blah. We can do it.
Yeah.
And basically help keep a spot on the roster while Kelce got better.
Right.
I also thought the thing about the Philly fans, and that's Northeast sports, man. Philadelphia, Boston, New York. I mean, they boo! You could make a great catch in the first quarter for a touchdown. They give you a standing ovation.
Sure.
Drop a pass on the next possession. Boo! You suck! You suck! Boo! That's Northeast sports fans.
Right.
That's just who they are.
Aguilar.
Yes. You've got either you can play in that region or you can't.
Right. It takes a special type of person to handle that.
You got to be able. You don't have to have forget thick skin. You have to have Kevlar skin.
Sure.
To play in the Northeast. But I like what Kelce said. 'Cause it's true. Because again, I've been around a ton of Philly sports fans in the last 21 years. They hate you and they love you because they're so passionate.
Sure.
They are. I mean, you see, like when the Red Sox broke the curse and won the World Series, that place was upside down. When the Eagles finally won the Super Bowl, Kelce told a story. This woman showed up at the celebration, and she had like a container. What's that? That's the ashes of my relative. I told them they'd be in the parade.
Oh, yeah.
It just, we talk about the SEC, it just means more.
It does.
Here. Well, in the Northeast, professional sports just means more. It just does. Again, I'm from the Mid-Atlantic. Yeah, we love it, but we're not like that. They're kooks. I mean, they are absolute kooks. D.C., not like that.
Right.
Chicago is the closest thing to that outside the Northeast corridor.
Yeah.
Chicago should be in the Northeast when it comes to sports because they're kooks too. I mean, remember, they tried to get Steve Bartman killed for the love of God. That's how kooky Chicago is. Let's blame the geek with the headphones on for ruining the National League Championship Series. It was his fault. Forget all the plays that the Cubs didn't make on the field. Let's blame the geeky guy. So Chicago kind of belongs in the Northeast. But yes, the Eagle fan. I mean, it is. It's an insanity and a mental illness all to itself in the Northeast.
Sure.
It just really is. And what I love about Jason Kelce, he's embraced it. He goes, hey, remember did you hear he told the Zach Ertz story?
Mm-hmm.
Zach Ertz was soft on a block and got booed and was getting crucified. Next week, made a great catch and ran through 10 guys to the end zone, and he became a folk hero.
Right.
That's just what it is. It is. Northeast, for professional sports, especially football, is like the SEC is. It just means more up there. And they are kooky to another level, man. And I thought it was really cool how Jason Kelce was like, I love this. This is phenomenal. I love these people. Because he's a kook, too.
Sure.
He fits right in.
And I brought this point up to you earlier, from a football fan standpoint, he's not going anywhere. He's going to find his way onto, Thursday Night Football or the ESPN Dusk. He has a good media presence, obviously does the podcast with his brother, does commercials and all that kind of stuff. So he's not just going to disappear and you're never going to hear from him again. It's up to him, obviously, and maybe he takes a year off and, spend time with his family. But he's eventually going to slide into a TV role or something like that, and you're going to hear plenty from Jason Kelce.
I just want more Chunky Soup commercials.
I do too. Those were good.
Those are pretty top drawer. The thing about Jason Kelce, too, and this is something I guess we should get through first, and we don't, he's a Hall of Fame center.
Oh, yeah. He'll have a gold jacket. There's no doubt about that.
He might not be first ballot, even though, honestly, I think he deserves to be first ballot. But put it this way, within the first 3 or 4 years of his eligibility, Jason Kelce will be a Hall of Famer.
And this is something Elijah and I talked about yesterday. He's undersized for his position. Mm-hmm. Andy Reid's talked about that when he drafted him. That was the concern. It's like, hey, he's a little bit undersized, 6'3". We'll see how he holds up. But he just has that toughness that allowed him to play that position really, really well. And, he's somebody that also has the benefit. I know he had a little lull in his career there back in 2016, but he ended his career still playing at a very high level. There are so many guys. I brought up Julio Jones, was the greatest receiver in the game with the Falcons, and then for these past couple years, do you remember he was on the Bucs this past year? Of course you don't. Of course you don't do anything.
Right, he didn't remember he was on the Bucs.
Exactly. He fell from grace pretty quickly, and whenever he retires, it's going to be going out with a whimper, as opposed to going out, literally on a playoff team like Jason Kelce did just a couple years removed from a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Kelce, I was listening to, I think it was ESPN Radio. I forgot who they were talking to. One of the NFL guys was talking about the Eagles. Here's how good Jason Kelce is. And if you really geek up on football, you know what I'm talking about. Jason Kelce from the center position would pull in the run game like a guard. Centers don't do that. That's not typically a center pulling like a guard, leading a sweep or leading a some type of maybe an inside kind of play where now the center is going to pull and lead.
Right.
I mean, that's a guard's game. That's how athletic and nimble, because when you look at Jason Kelce, you think nimble. Athletic and nimble Jason Kelce was. So the Eagles are going to be, unless they can find another Jason Kelce, they're going to have to change their run game.
Right.
Because they won't have a center with, like Liam Neeson would say, a special set of skills. So, yeah, this guy can play, man. And one of the things, too, The Athletic did a really, really interesting deep dive on Jason and Travis Kelce at the University of Cincinnati. And that was an interesting read because I know you'll be stunned. Kelce was nuts. And Jason drank a bit in college. Yeah. So that was a cool speech. It really was. And you wish more people could be that genuine and that honest and just lay it out. And I understood most of it. Every now and then, all I heard was snot gurgling, but it was really cool. And that was a from the heart. I'm just going to lay it all out there, and I'm going to throw it all up for you, and I'll see you goodbye. But I thought it was great. Jason Kelce announcing his retirement. All right, Firehouse Sub Text the Hour coming up 803-404-6100. We'll get to that. And we talked about Spencer Rattler throwing at the Combine. Matt Miller had some thoughts on the other quarterbacks throwing as well. Let's get to that before we get out of here. It's football in the 1 o'clock hour. Terry Ford, Travis, who the hell's Travis? Travis Kelce, Tyler Head. Tyler Kelce, Travis Head.
Jason Kelce taking my job?
I've lost my mind. Let's just get out of here. It's the game. All right, let's see what we got here on the old Firehouse Sub text line. 803-404-6100. What do you got there, Tyler Head or Tyler Kelsey or whatever the hell your name is?
Hold on. Got to get it to pull up here. 1 second.
It's okay. I like some Blues Traveler. We're good, man. Oh, while Tyler's getting this, by the way, baseball on our sister station in Columbia, and I'm guessing on their sister station in Myrtle Beach as well. Citadel and South Carolina, 6:15 pre, 6:30 first pitch. Reason the baseball game is on our sister station is because on 107.5 the game in Columbia and 100.3 the game in Myrtle Beach, Carolina calls with Lamont Paris again tonight at 6.
Correct. So I got one here, Pete, talking about Spencer Rattler and his, numbers from the combine and the projection that we read a little bit earlier about him. Those are categories they have to assign to every quarterback grade. Every quarterback gets graded in those areas, whether they are an RPO or a running quarterback or drop back passer. It's a column that needs to be graded for every quarterback. It's basically saying that all quarterbacks kind of held to the same standard of the.
We know that, but what we're trying to say is it's asinine to some quarterbacks. And if you're going to grade, Texter, you're right, and we know that. And we appreciate it. Thanks for the heads up. But we're not saying that Spencer Rattler is the only guy. But no, I'll take this back. Not everybody runs anymore. Not everybody tests. Even this year, we saw for the first time ever a quarterback not do their medicals.
Right.
In Caleb Williams. So the only pushback I'll go to the text is no, not everybody's doing this anymore. So you're not getting 40 because a lot of these guys will run their 40s at pro days.
Sure.
So the whole thing has gotten whacked out. Well, but yes, they all want to test them in these certain testing parameters. What we're trying to say is, if you ding Spencer Rattler, a drop back pocket pro style passer, on the fact that he ran a 4.95 40, you're totally missing everything that matters here. That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, and there's always the question of, how much does that really tell you about a quarterback outside of their game film, which at the end of the day, it doesn't tell you a whole lot. Again, you're talking about these small little incremental measurables where, again, I don't know too many quarterbacks that are running in a straight line for 40 yards over the course of a game. And,
it's like this. How many quarterbacks use their vertical leap?
That'd be none.
So that's my point. I mean, for Spencer Rattler struggled in the vertical. So what?
Yeah.
Who cares? What's he going to do? What was he do? Is he going to dunk a basketball at midfield? I mean, that's I guess Texter. Maybe we weren't clear enough in our point. Our point is these are tests they all want them to do. We're just saying how much is it applicable to really playing football, and you should really be turning the tape on.
And again, going back to what we talked about, I think where Spencer Rattler is going to impress most teams is when they're having the individual conversations, kind of breaking down film, talking about situations, that kind of stuff, where you can get on the whiteboard and kind of break things down from an offensive standpoint. That's probably where he's going to gain a lot of traction, with some of these teams.
Yeah, I mean. The smart teams use the combine as just some data. The smart teams turn on the tape and watch you play football.
Yeah.
Now, if they're going to specifically see you do something at the combine for whatever their reason, that's one thing. But they're not moving you up the draft board because you ran a really good 40. Like we talked about Xavier Legette in this one post I was reading. Legette just showed that the speed you see on the field is. But here's what I said, though. Okay, let's say, what do you rather have, Tyler? Speed on the field in pads, playing the game, or speed at the combine on a track?
On the field, playing the game.
Right. So, again, some of this stuff just. And I just hope, for the sake of the NFL, that more teams understand that really with the combines become a show.
Sure.
It's an event, another way for the NFL to keep themselves marketing their product. And you know what it is for, too? For coaches to network so they can get jobs.
Sure.
It's also for free agents of free agents to, on the down low, before free agency starts, talk to teams.
I'm really surprised because they do it in Indy every year. I'm really surprised we haven't taken this on the road yet.
Oh, there's talking about doing it.
New Orleans next year, you're getting the NFL Combine, and the droves of fans that can go out there and sit there and watch these guys, exercise in their underwear.
Absolutely. All right, real quick, Matt Miller from ESPN, he's one of their draft gurus, talking about the quarterbacks throwing at the combine. J.J. McCarthy, uneven. Some good throws, some not so good throws. Bo Nix, solid. Michael Penix Jr., surgical. And then we talk about Spencer Rattler, crisp. Yeah, I mean, Miller talked here about Bo Nix and didn't have a big arm. But Nix was solid in his throws. The thing with Nix to me is how much of it was that Oregon offense? Because Nix thrived in that type of offense. Is he going to be able to go and make those intermediate deep throws in the NFL consistently? Or do you run an Oregon-type offense for Bo Nix if you draft him?
Yeah, it's all situational.
And can you run that offense in the NFL and make it work?
Maybe.
So, but they say Penix was on point. Again, look, Michael Penix Jr., if nobody's pressuring him, he can tear up a defense. We saw in the national championship game when he did get pressured. Again, not the most mobile dude because of injuries, but Penix can sling it. There's no doubt. All right, football. We are done with that. We'll come back. What's trending at 2 here on the game? Get you some headlines. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game, rolling until 3. Then Elijah will pop in solo. Jay still off. We think he's coming back?
He told me he was coming back Thursday. I have accidentally bothered him the past 2 nights asking if he needed anything for his next show. And he's like, oh, I'm out tomorrow. I was like, okay. I thought maybe one day thing. I'm out tomorrow too. I was like, why don't you just tell me when you're coming back,
Tell
Jay?
me when you're coming back. Yep. Remember, there'll be baseball tomorrow afternoon.
Yes.
So there'll be no post-game show.
No.
So
In fact,
Jay,
that'll actually cut into our show a little bit.
Elijah and Jay will be back Thursday.
Yes.
Everything will be normal Thursday-ish. So Elijah will be popping solo at 3 o'clock here on the game. Again, Carolina calls with Lamont Paris at 6. Here on the game in Columbia and also in Myrtle Beach. And baseball on our sister station, 1320 WISW in Columbia, 6:15 pre, 6:30 first pitch versus the Citadel. Speaking of the men, the baseball team, Mark Kingston, after losing both games to Clemson over the weekend, really the pitching held its own okay against a very, very lethal Clemson lineup. Here's Coach Kingston talking about the evaluation of the pitching over the weekend.
I thought our pitching represented themselves very well, and if we pitch like that most weekends, we'll have a chance to win. It's disappointing we didn't score more runs, but our pitching definitely stepped up. I thought Eli did a nice job. SQ did a nice job. Ty Good did a nice job. Gainey obviously was electric. Roman Kimball was very good. Becker made the one mistake. Beach was very good at times. So we pitched very well. That was a concern coming into the season of a lot of people is how would we pitch, but our pitching has been very good. Matt Williams has done a really nice job with this staff so far, and we have good arms. So I think that will continue to improve as the season goes on, and I think that'll be something that'll really help us to be a consistent winning baseball team.
I mean, the pitching, which was and Mark has brought this up numerous times since the season started, that was the big question mark coming in a lot of people's minds. So far, pitching's been pretty solid to very good, depending on what you want to look at. Yeah,
South Carolina has the 6th best staff ERA in the entire country right now at, the 6th best batting average allowed in the entire country at .266. So far so good. And again, you knew you were going to run into a little bit of a better offense on Saturday and Sunday against Clemson, but I think everybody did a decent job managing everything. Like I said, the Jones 9 hits really kind of stick out to you a little bit, but he still mitigated the damage by only giving up 2 runs there. And again, after that, everybody did a solid job in their outings and till Gainey gave up the home run. But again, before that, everything was pretty decent.
Yeah, so the thing that was the issue was not being able to get the big hit with runners all over the bases. 437. Here is Coach Kingston talking about the runners being left on base.
Yeah, that's the issue. There's no question about it. And we met as a staff at length today to try to figure out ways to help our guys. We know we can hit. We know we're going to have a good offense. It just hasn't hit on all cylinders yet. And so the left on base is a concern. That was the difference in the ball games. I mean, really, just get one more hit in each game, and we come out 2-0 this weekend. So the disappointing part is we went 0-2, but the encouraging thing is it's fixable. I think there's some things we can do to help our hitters, both mentally and physically, that will get them going back in the right direction and be the kind of offense we think they can be. So it was a punch in the gut, no question about it. But if you take the lessons that you need to learn when you get disappointments like this, it can end up being a positive in the long run, and that's how we're going to approach it.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously no one here wants to lose to Clemson.
Sure.
So that's the big thing. Yeah, we talked about earlier in the show, there were some good things that come out of this 2-game series. The pitching was, held its own in a lot of ways. Offensively, you got people on base, you just couldn't knock them in. But the losing to Clemson stinks, and Kingston knows that. And you just move forward because you got a lot of season left. And you feel like, all right, you held your own against a top 10 team. Then you move forward from there. And you've got, 5 more games, 6 more games before you go into SEC play?
6 more.
You got a lot of time to get this together, man. It's not the end of the world. Losing to Clemson stinks. It's not the end of the world. Everything's going to be all right. But it doesn't take that taste, right? That taste. That taste now you have after that after losing both games.
Right. All
right. One last thing with Kingston, talking about improving the situational hitting. Go for it.
Well, it's a matter of making sure mentally they're in the right place. You know, they're not trying to do too much. I think in that series, at times, young athletes try to do a little bit too much because they know how big it is. They know how much attention is on them. They know everything is going to be on the highlights. And so occasionally young athletes will try to do a little bit too much. So mentally, it's the first thing you have to focus on. And then physically, it's just a matter of what is your physical approach? Are you getting too pull happy? Are you the kind of offense and the kind of hitters that can use the whole field? And when we're going really, really well, that's what we're doing. And I think over the last week or so, we may have fallen into a little bit of a trap of guys trying to pull the ball just a little bit too much. And again, that's where we need to step in and help them identify that and then work on it, because to drive in runs, you have to be able to use the whole field. Pull hitters, dead pull hitters generally are easier to pitch to in big situations, so we need to really just continue to focus on using the whole field, being dangerous from foul pole to foul pole, and when we do that, I think you'll see those left on base numbers start to go down.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when you're not using the whole field, when you're trying to do too much, when you're trying to, and you end up being a pull hitter, you sometimes get yourself out.
Mm-hmm.
In this, so yeah, you want to use the whole field. You want to go with the pitch and all that old school stuff. And it's a different world. Striking out today, a strikeout has the same value as a ground out to people.
Sure.
And I understand that in theory, but I still believe there's certain situations you got to take a step out of the batter's box, spit, adjust yourself, so to speak.
Right.
And start to think, okay, in this moment, I need something I can at least put in play, solid, hard contact.
And looking at the numbers, now that we have an 11-game sample size to look at, South Carolina is a really heavy ground ball hitting team. Can you be effective with hitting ground balls? Absolutely. You hit them in the right places, get them in between, second and short, and yeah, you can get on base with those kind of things. But more often than not, when you're hitting a lot of ground balls, that's going to result in a lot of ground outs and those kind of things. One number that kind of stuck out to me, and D1 Baseball breaks this up by the type of contact that you're making, whether that be these are all balls that get put in play. South Carolina does not have great numbers when it comes to hitting line drives, when it comes to putting balls in play. Guys like Dylan Brewer and Talmadge Lee, Gavin Cassis, good solid numbers there. But everybody else is under 10% when it comes to their balls put in play, compared to a team like Alabama, which has the best overall batting average in the SEC and one of the best in the country. All of their guys in their starting 9 are over 10% in that category. So it's telling me that South Carolina is not making good, effective contact more often than not when they're up there at the plate.
And that's what you're looking for. Barreling.
Yeah.
Solid contact.
So they're getting on top of the ball.
Yeah, and then you ground out. And that's where it's changed. You and I were talking about this before the show. What's changed when I was a boy, they teach you, ground ball good.
Yeah.
A ground ball was good because a pop-up bad.
Sure.
But a ground ball is good. And yeah, pop-up is bad. But you know what's good? A line drive in the gap.
That's right.
A line drive, over the head of the second baseman or shortstop that lands in front of the outfielders. Hitting the ball over guys. So as more and more study has been about hitting, ground ball bad. Especially, and of course it's not like this now. I mean, like with Major League Baseball, before they banned the shift, if you're a left-handed hitter and you hit a ground ball and you pulled it, just go to the dugout.
Sure.
19 dudes stand there ready to field it.
Well, and also, talking about the evolution of the game over time, athleticism has improved too. Mm-hmm. So the ability those ground balls that might have been just out of the reach of the average player, 20 years ago are getting caught now on dives. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a different type of game to where, again, ground balls are going to get you what you need. And again, going back to South Carolina's, ineffectiveness with runners on over the weekend, 4 of 37, a lot of ground balls hitting that game. Between those two games, a lot of ground outs in those two games. So again, when you're hitting those solid line drives into gaps and left center and stuff like that, that's where you start scoring your runs.
So basically, less ground balls.
Yes.
Less ground balls.
Which, again, it's easier said than done.
Sure
because,
it is.
again, you have to go back to the mechanics of what you're doing as hitters, and it depends on your pitching matchup and all that kind of stuff. So you can't just say, all right, guys, just start hitting more line drives. It's not that easy.
And that's why I say, and look, I understand when people, like when the shifts were going on in Major League Baseball, the extreme shifting, people would always say, just hit it where they're not. You understand they're throwing 98, right?
Those people never played baseball.
Right, they're throwing 98, 99, and they're throwing it on the inside of your fists.
Right.
So they're not, the idea, look, the pitcher knows where the defense lines up.
Sure.
It's not like you're blindfolding the pitcher. The pitcher knows 44 dudes are between first and second base to a left-handed hitter.
Right.
So they're not going to throw outside. They're not going to throw you a pitch on the outside part of the plate that you can, guess what, hit it where nobody is. They're going to throw you inside part of the plate, typically inside on your hands, and force you to hit the ball into the shift. It's not as easy as it sounds. My dad, God love Dean Ford. I don't know why I just hit it where they ain't. Well,
See, Dad never thought of that one.
Dad, they're throwing 100. It's kind of tough. It's like slow pitch softball. You can maneuver yourself and turn your feet and your hips and everything. The thing's going 1 mile an hour. Because I'm left-handed.
Yeah.
And when people would shift you in slow pitch softball, you can maneuver yourself to hit the ball the other way because the ball's coming half a mile an hour.
Sure.
When it's coming like a 97 or 98 and it's moving and dodging and darting and spinning, kind of tough to do.
Yeah. I don't know why you don't just hit more home runs. That seems to be pretty effective, right?
Jack that thing. What's wrong with you, boy? It's one of those things, just a good approach. You try to barrel it, good hard contact. And, and that typically doesn't mean you're hitting ground balls.
Right.
So, good step by you, sir.
Thank you.
Very nice. One last deal here with Coach Kingston. We talking about all these, the downers of the week, and let's get a little positive here. Dylan Brewer, the strong start to his season.
Yeah, well, he's really evolved as a baseball player. This is his last year in college baseball, and he's really leaving it all on the field. He's worked hard. He's gotten stronger. He's more mature than he's ever been. He just takes really good quality at bats. His on-base percentage is over 600. His batting average is 500. He's just a complete baseball player right now. He's got a couple stolen bases. He's playing really good defense in center field. So because of all those things, we pushed him up in the lineup, wanted to let him start the year kind of comfortable. But now that he's playing so well, I think it's deserved that he goes up towards the top of the lineup. And you may see a couple more tweaks to that lineup just as we're looking to try to spark that thing and get it going again. So, I think you can count on seeing him up there towards the top of the lineup for a while now.
Fantastic start for Dylan Brewer. Of course, tonight again on our sister station, ESPN 1320 WISW, 6:15 pregame, 6:30 first pitch.
Dylan Brewer still hasn't struck out this year.
How great is that stat?
That's amazing.
It is amazing, especially he's barreling it and he's not striking out.
Oh no, like I said, his line drive numbers, he's hitting him at 34%.
It's crazy.
He's actually almost evenly distributed between ground balls, line drives, and fly balls. He's almost evenly at 33% across the board.
Unreal. All right, switching over to women's basketball. It became a bit of a nail biter at the end against Tennessee. South Carolina, they pulled away to get the W. Undefeated going into the SEC tournament. Number one team in the country. And they got good news. Tahina Paopao will be back next year. I mean, what she has helped do for this basketball team by being so dangerous from the three-point line is you can't pack it in anymore.
Right.
Because Paopao will kill you from three. And she'll come back next year to run her COVID year. That's good news. A lot of depth coming back for next. This team is going to be stacked again.
Oh, yeah.
Hall's a senior. Raven Johnson, I think, will be a junior.
You're really just losing Cardoso.
That's it. Kitts will be back. Watkins, maybe Walker steps in and gets more minutes if she comes back.
I'm pretty sure Sakimba Walker has another year of eligibility.
Yeah, so, unreal. I mean, this team will be stacked. And having Paopao come back to be able to crush from the perimeter, plus Fawali will get more of a role next year. So it's going to be, once again, very talented roster. The awards went out. Camila Cardozo, first team All-SEC, Defensive Player of the Year in the SEC. Dawn Staley wins Coach of the Year, third straight year, I believe. First team All-SEC was Camila Cardozo. A ton of Gamecocks on the second team. Raven Johnson, Tahina Paopao, Ashlyn Watkins, all on the second team. The growth of Ashlyn Watkins has been unbelievable. Just unreal. All right, we'll come back. More Trending at 2 from the halftime show on the Game. What's trending at 2 here on the game? We keep rolling from Traditions, Fine Jewelry, and Gamecock Traditions. All right. This is interesting. Not surprising. The Dartmouth men's basketball team voted 13-2 today to join its local service employees union, marking the first time any group of college athletes has taken a public action as employees of their school and potentially, of course, setting off Armageddon.
It's one of the many, many steps along the process of getting where I think we all know we're ultimately going to end up. It's
Want to say it?
CBA.
Collectively bargaining.
Because with a union, that allows you to have a representative group for the players that allows them to sit down with the conferences, with the TV partners, whoever needs to be in the room and say, all right, how are we going to pay them?
And again, ready, if you're proactive, which the word proactive and NCAA has never been together.
No.
I play the game with it. All right, so
Sure.
let's say I'm the NCAA.
Okay.
And I'm the people that really run it, not Mark Emmert or Charlie Baker, or not the puppets.
You're the puppet master.
Basically, not Miss Piggy and not, Kermit. I'm talking about Jim Henson.
Exactly. Master of puppets.
Right. And you see where this thing's going.
Yeah.
And you're just getting killed in court. Okay, if you want to continue the dog and pony show in Congress and, begging and pleading and putting your lips on every backside you can until they get sore and puckered, fine. But me, I go, look, we know where we're going, right? So instead of unionizing and all this other stuff and making players employees and all these things that you really don't want, right?
Sure.
Wouldn't I go to my legal people instead of, just shuffling money down the courtroom toilet and say, guys, is there some way we can involve players, representatives for the players, representatives for the conferences, and obviously the TV networks have to be there, and the NCAA, and everybody that matters. Can we get reps together and make it a thing we can agree on something and make it an agreement without having to make the players employees and have them unionize? How about we get ahead of this thing and maybe we can find a way to do this legally that doesn't involve making them employees and unionize them? But you know what? That's never going to happen, Tyler. You know why?
Because that would break antitrust laws, which goes, I go back to what Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA, proposed. I believe it was towards the end of last year. It was only a couple of months ago, but he had a kind of, hey, let's meet kind of halfway in the middle type of thing where he proposed this new level of college football where it basically got to pay your way in, saying, hey, we can support this financial model where we'll be able to pay our student athletes, but the NCAA would still be involved and be the overarching, governing body over this league. And again, I think there are good things to it. Certainly, do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. I think we're more closely aligned to the SEC and the Big Ten, just saying, hey, we're just going to go do our own thing. You guys have fun middling with this for however long you want to do that. And then again, it's the NCAA just trying to cling to anything that they can to hold whatever small iotas of power they have right now.
What they want to hold on to, make no mistake, is the NCAA tournament.
Well, it's their cash cow. It's their moneymaker.
Their fear.
Why do you think they want to expand it?
Yeah. They're making a billion teams that get away with it.
Sure.
Everybody's in. Woo! They are petrified that the Big Ten and the SEC or the power leagues will break off, start their own thing, and they'll include basketball in it. And then the NCAA is got to figure out how in God's name they're going to have a tournament. Are they going to have to give those conferences more of a cut to make them partners in the tournament? And then they'll lose some of their billions.
Yeah.
That's their true fear. They have no control. They've had any control over football in years.
Well, they never had control over football. Football was always its own thing because for the longest time, you didn't really have a national champion. You just played bowl games and a bunch of writers got together and said, oh, we think this is the best team, and that was pretty much it.
Once Oklahoma and the other schools walked into court about the TV deals,
that was
anything the NCAA had any control over was gone.
Sure.
And that started where we're at today. And the NCAA, because they haven't had any kind of grip on football at all, they got grip on one thing that makes a ton of money, and they don't want to lose it.
Right.
And that's their biggest fear right now. And so that's why Charlie Baker comes out with this, idea. He's just trying to save the tournament.
Sure.
Like you said, meet in the middle thing. because that's what they're scared of.
And here's the thing. Yes, the NCAA tournament has a long, rich history. But like you said, if the SEC and the Big Ten, and let's just say the ACC and the Big 12 decided, yeah, we don't want to be a part of that anymore. Let's go start the Power Conference Invitational Tournament and run that in the month of March as well. Guess what everybody's watching, where all the good teams are going to be playing? The Power Conference Invitational Tournament, because it's built on brands and it's built on teams that people want to watch and want to follow.
But you're saying that these conferences don't care about tradition and old school mentality. You're telling me that, wait a minute, you're telling me that Southern Cal hasn't always been in the Big Ten?
They've not.
That Stanford and Cal haven't always been in the Atlantic Coast Conference, despite the fact they're on the Pacific Coast?
I was going to say, they pretty much dipped their toes in the Pacific Coast Ocean, but no, they have not.
That's what the NCAA is so petrified of.
Sure.
Because these conferences, they you want to talk about leaving tradition beaten and battered on the side of the road? They could care less about tradition.
Here's the thing. Is tradition going to make us money?
That's all they care
Now,
about.
keeping the Texas and Oklahoma game coming into the SEC, that makes money. All right, we'll keep that. Did keeping Texas and Texas A&M when they split into two different leagues, is that enough for us to care? Is that going to make us enough money for us to care to continue to play this game? It's not. We'll get it back when Texas eventually joins the SEC, and we got it back. But some of these other things, that's the first question. How much money does it make us?
Yeah,
is
no
it
doubt.
worth our while to keep this?
Did anybody care about the tradition of Oklahoma and Nebraska?
No.
Nobody cared. Nebraska took off to the Big Ten. They cared so little about that tradition because they got mad at the Big 12 because it became the Oklahoma-Texas League.
Right.
So tradition only matters when it matters to your wallet.
Exactly.
And that's all it is. All right, another college football note. More than 10,000 college football players, of course, have opted on this EA Sports college football game. It launches this summer. There is a guy, though, that said, you know what? I'm not opted. I'm going to opt out. But the reason is very interesting. Well, the surface reason is very interesting.
Sure.
Arch Manning has decided not to opt in. And Manning, according to articles, he wants to be the guy at Texas before he would do anything. But here's my question to you again. Not trying to be this guy, but if you're the starting quarterback at Texas, is there a chance that you might be able to get more? Because there's are going to be some players who are advertisers for the game.
Yeah, they'll be like ambassadors to the game. They'll get extra for promoting the game, maybe being on the cover, whatever it may be.
So if you're the quarterback at Texas, you got a better shot at that?
Probably.
So if you opt out now, wait your turn, so to speak, and your last name is what again?
Manning.
You think that might get you something? More than, what, $600 in a game?
Not this time around because you're opting to get nothing. But theoretically, maybe down the line, sure.
That's
But
what I
there's
mean.
no guarantee on that. And I thought J.D. Pikelov on 3 brought up a really good point. The fact that he's saying, well, I don't want to be distracted, focusing on football.
It's not it.
It's not. And opting out of the game is creating more of a distraction than opting in would have, like
This
the
is
other
a calculated,
95% of guys did.
Right, calculated financial brand move by the Mannings. Am I correct?
It seems that way, maybe.
Feels that way to me.
And does he need $600? Not necessarily.
No, I think they're okay. But here's the other part, too. When you say that, I want to wait till I'm the guy. I don't want to cause a distraction to Quinn Ewers. You look like a great teammate, right?
Right.
Just saying. And by the way, I'm surprised he stayed. I'm so surprised Arch Manning stayed.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how it plays out.
Because, Ewers is there for one more year.
Yep.
Barring injury, Ewers will have one more year and take off. The Manning will have sat 2 years at Texas. But here's the thing. Then if you start, that's 3 years, correct? So let's say you have your first year as a starter, because this is year 2. You'll be third year on campus.
Yeah.
So if you go out there and you, quote unquote, ball out in your first year as a starter, guess what you're going to do after that?
Later.
See ya.
NFL.
See you, bye. So you might not care about the old EA Sports. See you, bye. All right, we'll get back in here. It's March 5th.
Greatest day in the history of the world.
That's next, right here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game. All right, so let's say, for an example, you'd like to redo your kitchen, put in some new appliances, or let's say you'd like to redo a new tub, new shower, new fixtures, lighting, or just fixtures in general. Would you go to someone who has over 70 years experience combined at a business, or would you go somewhere where they just hired Jimmy and gave him an apron? I think I would go to the place with 70 years of experience. That's the Nest. 1331 Gadsden Street in the Vista. Just call and make an appointment. It isn't going to kill you. You call, you make an appointment. You go in and see one of the experts at the Nest. Whatever you're looking for, you sit down with them with your vision of what you want and the budget you have, and the experts at the Nest will set you up. Taste, budget, and need. Kitchens, bathrooms, lighting, fixtures, the whole deal. We'll be taking care of the Nest. Call 803-978-2025. Time for the greatest day in the history of the world, which today is March 5th. Here's one for you. Go back to 1931. WGL radio broadcast the first game of the American Basketball League Championship Series where the Brooklyn Visitations beat the Fort Wayne Hoosiers 14-10.
Wow.
Full game, 14-10. First professional basketball game to be broadcast live on radio, 1931, 14-10.
I'm guessing their adjusted tempo ratings weren't that high, or they're just really bad at shooting.
Ken Palm said both teams not very efficient, offensively or defensively. Let's shoot at a peach basket, bro. Come on. Peach basket. Peach basket. Here's one. Might want to give you a second to move the kids out of the room. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. On this day in 1973, New York Yankee pitchers Fritz Peterson and Mike Kekich announced they've swapped wives and children.
What?
Yeah, you never.
Hold on. I need some context here. Now, is this like a formal press conference?
With the families, they just swapped them. Do you ever see that scene in Hangover where they're out in the desert and they're going to swap their buddy for the money?
Or they thought it was their buddy.
Yeah, and then they find it's not their buddy?
Yeah.
That's what they did. They met and they swapped families. They walked toward each other. And
you're going to have to give me more details on this.
This is the real thing.
How did this happen?
This is the swinging 70s, man. They swapped. They just swapped. They were... I don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but... They swapped families and wives and everything. It was the crazy 70s, crazy early 70s, man. Everything. That was when that's the same time where people go to a party and they'd drop their keys in a hat.
The key party.
The key party.
I've heard of this.
A lot of crazy stuff in the 70s.
Glad
this was one of the
90s.
craziest. Yes. There's a lot of crazy stuff in the 80s and 90s too, to be quite honest. But yeah, they swapped wives and children.
Okay.
There was a reality show like that. What was it called? Wife Swap or House Swap?
Now, hey, I did enjoy Wife Swap. That was a fun show.
It was interesting.
It was interesting, but like it was like a week.
Yeah.
And they would always take like the extreme of like super strict mom versus like super lenient mom, and they'd switch them.
Yep.
And they'd have to live by the house rules first, and then they'd have their own rules, and it was always entertaining.
And they'd always go from super neat dad to super sloppy dad.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
And what we learned about ourselves during this week, we need to be a little more, tidy and all that.
Or this,
stuff.
You know what I learned? I don't want to be with that guy.
Well, and inevitably, always like the slacker dad would end up getting in a fight with the real strict mom, and it was very entertaining.
Always. I only watched it a couple times, but I won't lie, I was highly entertained. I'm not a big reality show guy, but that was kind of interesting. All right, and again, we're going to throw this down. Obviously, to this day, he's still very involved in the skating world. 1981, great story. Scott Hamilton won the men's title, the World Figure Skating Championships in Hartford, Connecticut. Hamilton also won, if my memory serves me, the gold medal in the Olympics. And now he does commentary for figure skating. Great story. 1985, Mike Bossy of the New York Islanders scores his 50th goal, becoming the first NHL player to score 50 goals in 8 consecutive seasons. This year, the NHL is kind of having a renaissance in goal. It's not like the Gretzky era or the Lemieux era where dudes were scoring crazy, but a lot more pucks going in nets in the NHL. They've kind of tweaked things a little bit over the last so many years to kind of get some more offense back in the game.
Right.
So Mike Bossy back in 1985, 50 goals, 8 straight seasons. This had to be fun. Ottawa and Philadelphia combined for an NHL record 419 penalty minutes. The Flyers setting the single-season team mark with 213. This back in 2004. 5 consecutive brawls in the final 2 minutes, including one involving both goalies. How cool is that?
You know how hard it is for the two guys that are the farthest away from each other on the ice the entire game to fight?
There's nothing cooler in hockey than goalie-on-goalie violence.
Well, you got to be a little bit unhinged already to be a goalie to begin with.
Oh, God, yeah. You take them pucks at the body. The pucks are hard, man.
Yeah, man. And, you could, who was the guy that took the skate to the neck all those years ago?
Oh.
You never know.
Well, how about the guy that was this past year took the skate and bled to death on the ice?
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, we can't end on that happy note. Hold on here. 2016, Boston College gets beat by Clemson in hoops, 66-50, completing the Eagles' winless regular season. 0-18. The first team in ACC history to go winless in the conference regular season since Maryland did it 0-14 in 86, 87. That was right after the Len Bias tragedy. Maryland basketball had cratered. Then worse, well, here's what makes it worse. BC's football team, same year, 0-8 in league play. First time in ACC history, a school went winless in both basketball and football in the same academic year. Nice job, BC.
Imagine being a student at that point in time.
Yeah.
There's nothing fun about the athletics at this school.
You're going to 0 games,
Pretty
right?
much.
0 games.
They're begging you to come.
Yeah, it's awful. Every way, shape, and form. Awful. All right, that's the greatest day in the history of the world. Sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Spin back here. I want to get another college football note that we didn't get to during what's trending at 2. Obviously, the SEC and the Big Ten have gotten together. And they're kind of sweet on each other. And they realize if we get together, we rule the college athletic world.
Right.
Paul Feinbaum was on Jocks, our sister station in Birmingham, talking about the SEC and the Big Ten's influence in the new college football playoff proposals. Here's Paul Feinbaum.
To me, the most interesting part of all this is the fake outrage from the media. First of all, nothing has been determined yet, and many of the so-called top influence makers in our space are just going apoplectic and talking about the arrogance of it all. But what I think the SEC and the Big Ten are trying to do is set some parameters, and as if to say, listen, we have pretty much controlled this sport. We are bringing most of the eyeballs into the college football playoff every year, and will continue to. We want to be paid for it. So I mean, everyone listening knows that to set a baseline, you have to maybe overshoot the runway a little bit in negotiations. I don't know specifically what the goal is of Commissioner Sankey and Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner, but I do know that they're probably tired, or I feel very strongly that they're probably tired of loudmouth presidents like the guy at Washington State who got in the way several years ago and stopped progress of the 12-team playoff. He viciously attacked the group that came up with it, including Greg Sankey, and he's still mouthing off. And he's part of a league with 2 schools. I mean, so my reaction to President Schultz is shut up. I mean, go find yourself into a league before you try to dictate policy at the CFP. And there are other people like that as well. And I think when you look at the numbers, we know that the SEC has populated this tournament significantly since its inception. Nobody's even in the same category, but the Big Ten has had some representation. So I think that's what's really going on. And whatever they're putting on the table to scare everyone, they're probably saying, listen, if you don't like it, we'll take our ball and go somewhere else. And quite frankly, guys, that's a possibility.
I mean, nobody wants to see that. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see the SEC and the Big Ten go off and make their own thing, and then the rest of college football is over here. Again, yes, the best college football obviously is played in the SEC. We get it.
Sure.
And the Big Ten is top-heavy with Ohio State and Michigan. And now we don't know what Michigan's going to be now that Coach Kakis is gone. But Michigan's still a big brand that brings a lot of eyeballs to the table with ratings and revenue. And Ann Arbor is like, the campus is like 50,000 students. But nobody wants to see these guys go away. But the point being, what Paul brings up, you got people now who need to understand, you were blah, 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 blabbling. Now your blah, 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 blabbling doesn't really matter as much as you thought it did.
Right.
And all you were doing was getting in the way and leading to this moment.
Right.
You're not getting on board in some way, shape, or form has led to this moment. All right, let's get our Firehouse Sub text of the day in our final segment, 803-404-6100. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, till 3 on the game. We got a couple things to get to before we pop out in our final segment before Elijah takes over the post-game show here on the game. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. All right, what do we got on the old Firehouse text line?
Yeah, so Nameless Texter weighs in and says, all these non-symmetrical playoff themes need to go away. Just make it 16 and call it a day. We're already headed that way anyway. It's like people are getting paid to overly complicate what should be an extremely easy situation to deal with.
Did you send that?
I did not.
Did you send that and say Nameless Texter?
I couldn't agree more. He also adds no AQs, no bye weeks, no most deserving mentality.
Yes, thank you. Wonderful text. That might be the text of the year.
That was a good one.
That was an excellent. Not that all the other ones aren't excellent, even if we agree or disagree with you, but
because we have what we have to do to decide on a college football playoff format.
What we have to do, Tyler?
We have to form a committee.
Yes, we do. We have to form a committee so we can figure out how we're going to have a committee.
Yeah, we have to have a committee.
Subcommittee. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Subcommittees.
Well, because that's essentially what they're doing at these, meetings in Indianapolis with, all these leaders around college football. It's like, okay, well, we think this format's good. We think this format's good. Well, maybe we can have 3 automatic qualifiers, and you can have They're having to kind of hammer out a common sense solution across the board. And again, at the end of the day, none of it's going to satisfy anyone completely.
You use 2 words here you can never use again.
What was that?
Common sense.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Stop that. Excellent text. We agree with Tyler and I agree with you 150%.
Yeah.
All right, real quick, a couple things before we get out. Bracketology. The latest, South Carolina sitting in the 5 and 6 spot in, I guess, Lenardi has him in the 6 hole. Jerry Palm and the on 3, James, was it Fletcher?
Yeah, James Fletcher the third. We had him on last week.
He's got him in the 5 spot.
Which is weird. Lenardi had them at 5 yesterday in his little, preview tease to today's. I guess maybe some of the games last night affected things and shifted them around, so they stay at 6 with him.
It would be nice, look, depending on, obviously, if you get a big W over Tennessee, that will help you. Even if you split the last 2 in your wins over Tennessee, then you lose in Starkville on the road, that should help you a little bit. If you can win a game in the SEC tournament, great. You're in, though, man. You're in.
And here's the thing. We talked to T3 Bracketology this morning on the Garnet Trust Hour. Even if they lose the next 3 games, which would be the final 2 of the regular season, and bounced in the first game they play in the SEC tournament, you're probably not going to fall that far at worst in 8. But you'll probably still be a 7 at that point in time.
You're fine. You're fine. You're in. Life is good.
Yeah.
Life is good. All right, real quick, we didn't talk about the Russell Wilson thing today. You guys probably got into it yesterday a bit. Look, this clearly shows you how much Sean Payton, this is for sure. Sean Payton, the way he likes to run an offense, remember, think Drew Brees.
Sure.
Drew Brees would drop back 3, 5, 7 steps. Scan the field, make a quick decision, accurately throw the football.
Right.
It was very quick, very fast. Drew Brees didn't screw around.
Right.
Drew Brees was excellent at going through progressions and making the quick, smart throw accurately. Russell Wilson, off-script guy. Russell Wilson, hold the ball guy. Russell Wilson, drive Sean Payton crazy guy.
Well, he has his own office.
Exactly. So when you have your own office, Drew Brees probably didn't have his own office.
I don't think Drew Brees wanted his own office.
And then Sean Payton went, you're not getting your own office.
When he had to have his people in the building, too.
Yeah. See, I wonder this, too. And this, I haven't seen this. I know that Russell Wilson, the way he plays the position, is nothing like Drew Brees, and Sean Payton wants someone to play the position like Drew Brees.
Right.
But how much of Russell Wilson off the field drove Sean Payton crazy, too?
Probably quite a bit, because he inherited a mess of a situation. Again, he got his own office, got his own people in the building. He's doing these, his own personal trainers. No, you're going to work with the team.
Right.
You're a team player.
You're not having an office. Go in the locker room with everybody else, Jack. I think Russell Wilson, and look, here's the thing, too. Last year, Russell Wilson put up good numbers.
Yeah.
So, yes, Russell Wilson didn't play the position the way that Sean Payton would like it played.
Sure.
But let's be real here. Russell Wilson last season completed over 66% of his passes.
Yep.
Just a tick under 7 yards an attempt, 26 touchdowns, only 8 picks, threw for over 3,000 yards. I mean, this was a good, solid season. This is not.
Yeah, it was way better than his first year under Hackett.
It's not Zach Wilson.
No, it's not.
And he improved in every category under Sean Payton, and Sean Payton couldn't wait to get rid of him. Sean Payton At the end of the year, when they're trying to fight for a playoff spot, Tyler, what'd they do?
They lost, or they benched him.
They said, no, we're not playing you because we don't want you to get hurt and we got to pay you.
And look, the Broncos, ever since Peyton Manning retired, have had a tough time sticking with the quarterback. Russell Wilson won 11 games between 2 seasons as a starter for the Broncos. Do you know who the most winning quarterback in the past 10 years since Peyton Manning retired for the Broncos is?
Russell Wilson.
Trevor Siemian, 13 wins.
Point being is I wonder how much of Russell Wilson off the field also contributes to why Sean Payton doesn't want him around.
Probably quite a bit.
I think there's a lot more to it than just Russell Wilson doesn't play the position like Drew Brees. Russell Wilson's got to do a little come to Jesus. Don't you think? Look in the mirror.
Absolutely.
A little Russ talk to Russ time. All right, it's a halftime show. Tyler had a fine job. We'll do it again tomorrow. Elijah's coming in next here on the game. 803-875-MENS. The Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Look, it's okay to admit it. You don't have to admit it to your family, your friends, the dog, even though he can't talk. And you don't have to say anything to anybody. You're worried. Things aren't right with you. You have a lack of drive, life drive, professional drive, sex drive, any drive. You have no drive. The D is off your stick shift of life. Your workouts stink. Your recovery stinks. Your sleep is You can't remember where you're sitting things. Oh, man, what was I going to do? I can't remember. It's driving you nuts.